actually live, because people wouldn't know what to do with themselves if they didn't tune in and see me just rambling about this before.
Right.
There we go. We're live. Good evening. Welcome to Anchor Church. Glad that you are here.
Me too.
Yes. Apparently there's going to be banter in the room tonight. That's going to be fun.
You is
So welcome to service this evening. We're still on our series of looking at the parables of Jesus. Tonight we're going to be in Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 24. Those of you in the room, most of you heard that already. If you didn't, now you have. If you're online, you can start looking that up. We're in the middle of the trilogy of Jesus talking about the lost. So while you're looking up those scriptures, the additional scriptures, if you're online, they're already in the description. And if you're in the room, you'll get them as we go. And while you're looking that up, we'll take care of business. Thank you, those of you that are online, that a lot of you, actually there's quite a few of you that contribute financially to what we're doing here. We appreciate that you support the ministry here in the building. We look at you as being part of what we're doing here, and don't treat you differently just because you're online folks. So thank you very much for that. If you would like to support the ministry that we have here at Anchor Church, you can do that by giving with the Tithely link that's on the front of our Facebook page. If you're in the room, you guys already know that stuff, and you know the times that we receive tithes and offerings. But if you'd like to do that online, you can do it electronically there. We are a 501c3. You will get a tax receipt. All of that will go toward your taxes if you want to. All that money will go toward ministry here at the church. I do get a small salary from the church, and the rest of that money, all but $400 a month of it, goes into the lights and outreach ministry, and just making sure that we're able to do the ministry here that we do to outreach to the community and just keep the building functional so we can meet in it. So, and the internet connected so we can meet with you. So with that said, I'm going to pray, and then we'll get into this passage in Luke chapter 15. Lord, I thank you tonight for the opportunity to be in your house with your people. I love your word, and I love you, and I love the way you gather us week after week. I thank you that your word is alive and active and still talks to us. I pray that tonight you'll help me present this in a way that is as living as it is on the page. Open our hearts to receive what you have for us. Let me speak well and clearly so that your purpose gets accomplished here, and we're better equipped to do your work than we were when we came. In your name, amen. So we've been in this smaller series because we get a few of these times when Jesus expands on a topic and speaks more than once on one thing. So I called this last 3 lessons that we're doing, well, the past 2 plus this one, the trilogy of the lost, because Jesus gives 3 separate parables about lost people. And we're looking at these not just the way Jesus taught them, but actually from the perspective of what does this mean for me? How am I supposed to treat the lost? How am I supposed to minister the way that Jesus does? Because we're finding out how important the lost are to him. We looked at the lost sheep. We looked at the lost coin. And tonight we're looking at the lost son, or the prodigal son, as a lot of us know it. So let me start reading this to you, and then we will... I'm so tempted to say break it down, but I can't dance. So we will just... I lost you. I didn't think it was that funny. That's okay. We will get into how the Lord wants us to present this tonight. So Luke chapter 15, starting in verse 11. Then Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, 'Give me now the part of your property that I am supposed to receive someday.' So the father divided his wealth between his 2 sons. A few days later, the younger son gathered up all that he had left. He traveled far away to another country, and there he wasted his money living like a fool." That's important. Remember that. "After he spent everything he had, there was a terrible famine throughout the country. He was hungry and he needed money. So he went and got a job with one of the people who lived there. And the man sent him into the fields to feed his pigs. And he was so hungry that he wanted to eat the pig food, but no one would give him anything. The son realized that he had been very foolish." There's that word again. Keep that in mind. "He thought to himself, 'All my father's hired workers have plenty of food, but here I am almost dead because I have nothing to eat. I will leave and I will go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I've sinned against God and I've done wrong to you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son, but let me be like one of your hired workers.' So he left and he went to his father. While the son was still a long way off, his father saw him coming and felt sorry for him. And so he ran to him and hugged him and kissed him. And the son said, 'Father, I have sinned against God and I have done wrong to you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Hurry, bring the best clothes and put them on him. Also put a ring on his finger and good sandals on his feet. And bring out our best calf and kill it so that we can celebrate with plenty to eat. My son was dead, but now he is alive again. He was lost, but now he is found. And so they began to have a party. For those of you who have not been following along the whole time, I'm reading out of a translation that is designed for people that either use English as a second language or people that speak English on roughly a third grade level, because we're teaching these the way that I teach them to children, and we've actually found out we're 22 lessons in at this point. I have honestly found out how much I get out of these things by looking at them simply instead of looking at them so academically and complex. So we're reading out of a simplified Bible, and we're going to look at a simplified version of the message. But this is, tonight, one of the longest installments of this series because there's a lot of important stuff in here, even when we look at it very simply. For starters, let's just set the scene here. This is the same audience that Jesus has been speaking to in the previous two parables. We've talked a couple of weeks in a row now, and I won't belabor it again this week so we can get through this, but they were tax collectors and sinners, a large group of people that the typical Jewish law-following people that we would probably call church folks and Christians today. There's a large collection of people here that they probably wouldn't normally have anything to do with. And then we have the disciples, and we have the Pharisees and the scribes, who would have been the preachers and teachers and leaders of the day. Jesus has spoken to them previously with a couple of parables. He told them about the value of all people with a lost coin. Everybody is worth saving. He talked about how God takes personal interest in every single person, and he takes personal responsibility for people to make sure they're taken care of. Then we looked at the parable of the lost sheep. Jesus talked to them and shared with them about the importance of seeking the lost, going and finding them wherever they are, whatever it takes to get to them. And now he shares this parable of the lost son. And in this story, Jesus is explaining the importance of how, it's one of my favorites too. It explains the importance of how we receive lost people when they come. Jesus has said everyone is valuable. Jesus has said we should go and look for them. And now he says this is how we treat them and how we receive them when they come into our life, when we find them, or when they show up at our door. In verses 11 and 12, let me read this again. It says, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, give me now the part of your property that I'm supposed to receive someday. And so the father divided his wealth between the 2 sons. There's something interesting to note here when we talk about how do we treat the lost when we find them or when they come to us. We don't know why the son left. We can make a lot of guesses, but the story simply says that one day he up and said, I want what's mine and I'm going. We could guess that maybe he was unhappy at home. We could guess that he was adventurous and just wanted to try new things. We could guess that he was rebellious and he was angry at his dad, and because he was angry, decided to leave. I don't want to live under your roof and I don't want your rules anymore. We could guess at those things, but the story, the way it's written, Jesus doesn't give a reason. And that's the first lesson already from this story. Jesus doesn't tell us why the person left because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how someone got lost or how lost they are. We know that what the son did was shameful. We know that what he did was bad. We know that sin was involved. We know when we're dealing with lost people that they don't know Jesus and don't behave in a respectful manner or in a way that pleases him. How and why they got that way does not matter. It couldn't be any less important. A lot of times what we want to do is say, well, because they did this, or there's a good reason. In fact, if we're the lost person, because even if we've been saved, we can sometimes wander off and need to be found again. We've talked about this in the previous 2 lessons. What we do is we want to make an excuse for our bad behavior. Or we want to look at someone else's bad behavior and say, well, that's worse than this, and we want to start ranking it like some behavior that's bad is worse than others and some is not so bad, and we could look the other way. Jesus makes it very plain that your reason for sinning doesn't matter. Sin is sin. It doesn't matter how you got there. The standard of God for what's right and what's wrong doesn't matter. Sin is sin. The fact that we didn't obey and honor our Father is the issue. It doesn't matter what our reason for being disobedient or unkind or rude was. We know this because, first of all, Jesus gives no reason why the son left. It doesn't have anything to do with the story, his reason for leaving. We just need to understand something wrong was done. The son left and shouldn't have gone. And we do see kind of what his attitude is. He says, give me my share. If you read that in the conventional, normal translations, it says, I want my inheritance. The idea that you want your inheritance early is a sign of disrespect and rejection, because when do you get your inheritance? When somebody dies. The son looked at the father and basically says, I wish you were dead, and I want what I have coming to me. I don't have any use for you anymore other than what value you can bring to me when you're gone. Incredibly disrespectful. Rejected his father in the worst way. And that's the real issue. When we talk about sin and we talk about lost people, the reason people got lost or how lost they are or what the details of their sin might be doesn't matter. It's not the act of leaving that's the problem. It's the heart of this question. It's that at some point someone decided to reject God. All sin. Your sin, my sin, the sin of every person who ever has or ever will sin. All sin is equal because all sin is a rejection of God. In this story, when we talk about how do we receive the lost, how do we get the lost, and how do we treat them when they show up, it does not matter how lost they were or how they got there. What matters is all lost people look the same. They rejected God at some point. They rejected the Father and his gift. No matter what your reason is for doing something, at the end of the day, when I sin, I'm saying, I want what I want more than I want God. When you sin, what you're saying is, I want what I want more than I want God. And it's interesting here, when I'm explaining it, I'm using the word inheritance. But if you actually go back and look at the original text, even in the way that we just read it tonight, the son doesn't actually use the word inheritance. He says, I want what I have coming to me. I want what it is I would get if you died. But he doesn't actually use the word inheritance, and I think that's important. Jesus picks his words. If anybody ever picked their words carefully and on purpose, I would say it was the Son of God. And he's telling this story. And the son doesn't ask for inheritance, and there's a reason for that. Inheritance comes with responsibility, and that's the very thing the son doesn't want. Inheritance comes with responsibility. If I want my inheritance, I'm also saying the things that belong to the family, I'm going to care for them. The traditions that belong to the family, any small children that are left, any belongings that come to me, I'm going to care for them. The family business, I'm going to maintain it. Inheritance comes with responsibility, and the son wants none of that. What the son wants is just the benefits of what dad has. Give me the money, but don't give me the benefit, or don't give me the responsibility that comes with it. He's saying, I wish you were dead, but I want nothing to do with the family and the stuff. I just want the money. I want all the wealth. I want all the blessings. I want all the promises. I want all the good feelings. But I don't want to be held accountable. I don't want to be corrected. I don't want to be disciplined. I don't want to be held responsible for my actions. I just want the good stuff. When we sin, that's where we are. And when we find ourselves in that place where all we're praying for are the blessings and the promises, we are the prodigal son. We are rejecting the Father because we just want the good stuff with none of the accountability or responsibility that goes with it. The son uses this phrase that literally translates into English to say, I want my share. All I want is what I have coming to me. All I want is my fair share. If you know Shel Silverstein, you know that poem. It's this attitude of entitlement, this attitude that I deserve something. What I believe is rightfully mine is what I want. But when we're entitled, we think we deserve something that we've done nothing to earn. See, grace is something that God gives us freely, but we say so often, give me, because I'm a son of God, give me, because your word says you have to. That's a very different attitude to have. That's entitlement that says, I don't deserve it, but it's rightfully mine, so give it to me. When sin comes into our lives, we start to make the mistake of thinking that God's gifts are something we have the right to receive. And we don't have the right to any of it. We are given the opportunity, the privilege of being sons and daughters of God. We are given the privilege and the opportunity of participating and taking part in whatever God has for us. But we never get to demand it. We forget sometimes what we deserve. Romans 6:23 is a verse that seems to keep coming up when I'm teaching lately, whether it's in this church or other places. It's almost like the Lord is telling people something. The wages of sin is death. What you earn, what you deserve, is death. This is what sinners look like. This is what lost people look like. And you might find them sitting right next to you in church just as easily as you find them in the bar down the street, or in the gutter on the side of the road, or in Congress, wherever else you like to think sinners are. You could find them anywhere, but this is how we know what they look like. I want the benefits, but I want no responsibility. I'm rejecting what God says I'm supposed to do, but I still want good things for myself. This is what sinners look like, not just in the world, but in the faith, because we do still sin as Christians sometimes. Disciples still fall short. Remember who Jesus is talking to here. Yes, there are some sinners present, but he's also got the scribes and the Pharisees and even the disciples. And consider who Jesus is talking about in this parable. He says, this is a son who grew up living in his father's house. This picture of a sinner is someone that came from within the house of the Father. This could be you. This could be me. This is not just somebody out there that's not trying to follow the Lord. This is any of us that get to a place where we think, I deserve, or I want, or I would rather have what's important to me. Jesus is talking about a son, not a stranger. Now, how does that look or sound in the real world? Well, I've given you a few examples, but let me give you a list. Some people get this entitlement idea, and they start to qualify things. They'll say things like, I've been a Christian long enough. I've memorized enough scripture. I've done my turn in that ministry. I've been really good this year. I've lived a whole lot more life than you, and I've got a lot more experience that I think that you're doing a disservice by not taking advantage of it. I've got some really good ideas that I think you should let me make happen. When the sentences begin that way, you already have an idea of who you're dealing with. When your sentences begin that way, you already, if you'll listen to yourself, have a good idea of where your heart is. And a lot of times those sentences finish like this. I have done these things, so I believe I should get to be a pastor, but I don't really want to have to care for people. I just want to preach and have people tell me my message was really good. I believe I should get to teach a class, but I don't want to have to answer to the pastor or have anybody be in charge of me. I should get to teach whatever I want. I believe that I should get to lead worship, but I don't want to be accountable for my life outside of church. If I'm not up here singing, who are you to tell me what I can do on Thursday night? I believe I should get to be called a Christian, but I don't want to have to pray and read the Bible every day. I just want to come to church and come to your events because they're fun. Well, I believe I should get to come to church, but I shouldn't have to do anything but sit and hear the message. Everybody else can take care of each other. I believe I should get to be friends with the pastor and hang out with him and go to his house and have dinner and spend time with him. But if I do that, I don't want him to know so much that he starts preaching about my issues and telling me I'm doing anything wrong. Just a few examples. Some of them I've run into myself. Some of them I've heard other people run into. But this is what we're talking about when we say, I begin to get entitled. And I've begun to look at God and say, what's most important to me is what I want, not what you want. When we start to think we deserve something, when we're out of line. That's the prodigal son's attitude when he leaves the house. And that's a sin. It doesn't matter how he got that way or why he got that way. The point is, he got to this point, and he's in sin. And then we see God's nature in the father's response. The son says, I wish you were dead. Give me the part that should belong to me. And the father, it says, he distributed the assets to him? No, to them. The father gave everything to everyone who normally would have had a right to get it. The father gives both sons their portions, and he does it without getting angry. He does it without being hateful. He does it without giving any harsh words whatsoever. See, God cares for us so much that instead of giving us what we deserve, he will allow us the freedom to do what we choose. That is a beautiful and terrifying idea. Because so often we will think that since God didn't speak up and yell no, and God didn't throw down a roadblock, and God didn't yell and scream, and God didn't put someone there to tell us no in the moment that we wanted to do a terrible thing, that must mean it's okay. But the Father doesn't yell and scream and beg the Son to stay. He says, if this is what you want, you've lived in my house, you know me, you know my ways, here you go. Notice something else. The other son we don't talk about a whole lot, and he doesn't get a whole lot of attention when this story gets shared. But notice that he gets given the same options. The older son gets given the same options as the younger son, but the older son doesn't leave. He chooses to stay even though he's been given everything he's going to get. See, free will works both ways. We can choose to stay and enjoy everything the Lord has given us, or we can choose to take what the Lord has given us and we can run as far from him with it as we want to. While we live, God makes the same options available to all people. That doesn't mean he gives everybody the same gifts and the same talents, but the promises and the blessings and the opportunity to be in his presence and live as his child is available to anybody. God always leaves the option to stay. But the thing that's most important in this story is that God always leaves the option to come back and make it right, even when we choose wrong. God always gives us the option to come back. No matter how severe our wrong is, God doesn't abandon us. In fact, we talked about this some on Sunday. The message from Sunday was about grace, for those of you that haven't seen it yet or weren't here. And we talked about the fact that there's absolutely nothing you can do to get away from God's grace. It will follow you wherever you go. It is available to you wherever you are. No matter how severe the wrong is, God does not abandon you or retract his offer as long as you're alive and breathing. As long as you live, no matter what your wickedness is, God will forgive you and reconcile you. Reconcile is not a word we use much in everyday life. Reconcile just means to make things right with him. Verses 13 through 19, though, talk about the younger son when he leaves. And I told you to remember a couple of words. Twice in there we see him called a fool. In fact, it tells us that the son's living was foolish living. Literally, that's a kind of living that it translates to being wasteful. He doesn't use well what the father gave him. The son literally spent everything he had on worthless things that didn't have any lasting value at all. When we try to get just the good stuff from God, when we try to just get the benefits, but we don't want any responsibility, I don't really want my inheritance, I just want the blessings, we find out that we're left with nothing that lasts. Anything that you apply those talents to that isn't for the kingdom will not last. There's a lot of people that have a great teaching gift. And they say, well, I'm going to take my toys and go home because I can't do it here. And they'll take that great teaching gift God gave them. They'll go out into the world. They'll take that great voice that they have or that wonderful musical talent. They'll go out into the world. And the only benefits they get are ones that disappear and rot and die and are gone with them. You think of some of the best musicians, the best writers, the best actors, the best politicians that ever there have been, and their legacies might last 100, 200, 300 years, but name me somebody from over 1,000 years ago that wrote your favorite song. Everything is temporary when we apply it to something temporary. The things of God, they're supposed to last forever. When we apply them to things that fade away, it's foolish and worthless. When we're only wanting the benefits, we don't end up with anything that lasts. Our experiences and our good times and our good feelings and our good intentions. Did you hear that last one? Because so often we say, oh, but you know my heart, my intention was, I didn't mean. Your experiences and your good times and your good feelings and even your good intentions don't have any eternal value. They're meant to be the byproduct of something that is lasting. Good feelings and good experiences and good times and good intentions are what happen if I'm doing things for the Lord. And occasionally I'll make some mistakes, and not everything you do for the Lord feels great. Not everything results in this good stuff, but these good things are supposed to come from I'm serving the Lord with what he's given me. They're a byproduct of something that does last. If I live in a relationship with the Lord, things go well. And what comes out of it is lasting. When we try to only get the benefits of God, though, we always end up unfulfilled. Have you ever seen people that were just crushingly unhappy? It's like they've never smiled. Nothing seems to be good enough for them, and no matter how good it is, even when they smile, you can tell there's an emptiness that's there. It's what happens when we're trying to take the great eternal benefits of the Lord and apply them to something other than an eternal purpose. The son finds this is the case in verse 17. In verse 17, it says, he came to his senses. That phrase literally means that he remembered who he was. Remember, he had been a son who was in the father's house. And he goes out and he takes all of the great things his father had. Because I imagine the things his father had in his house went really well for him. Anytime I do something great at Dad's house, it just seems to turn out great. I don't know about you, but you go to Dad's house and the pancakes taste better. And it's the same ingredients that you could use at your house. It's even the same recipe, but something about the fact that Dad made it or Mom made it or it was at home, it was in that place of safety and protection being done for you in the place that it's intended to be done, makes it better than if you do it for yourself. One day the son realizes, I'm using all the same stuff, trying to do all the same things, and nothing is working out for me. And finally he remembered who he was. I'm not the one in charge here. Everything at Dad's house works really well, and Dad's not dead, so I should be where Dad is. It says he remembered who he was. He was a son that was meant to work in his father's house. And so he decides to return to his father's house, and here's something very important. He returns to Dad's house because he's starving. The moment of understanding that we have will eventually happen for everyone who has sinned. We are supposed to be living and functioning in God's house as God's children, and things go well for us when we do. Even when things are not going well on earth, we know eternally things are going well for me. We were texting about that. Well, you sent me an old text about that, where we start to realize, okay, but the eternal stuff that's happening is good, even when things here don't look so great. I've got peace that makes no sense. I've got joy, even though things aren't very happy. Things are going well if I'm working towards something eternal. We're meant to be in a relationship with the Lord, but we wander off in sin and we suddenly find out that the things are not working so well for me anymore. And we have this moment where we realize, I'm trying to do this outside of the place it was intended to happen. I'm doing this for the wrong reason. Everybody gets that moment of understanding. Everybody really does. Unfortunately, some people get it in this life, but others don't really get it until they die. They get given opportunity and they squander it. But everyone eventually has an opportunity. Everyone who rejects God eventually has an opportunity to understand that, this is who I'm supposed to be. I remember, I know who I am. There's a lot of people that will get angry in this life. They'll find themselves in that difficult place, and they'll even be faced with that realization. Things are not working well, and I should be going back to something. There's something bigger than this, something greater than this. But no, I don't want to deal with that. And they'll get angry, and they'll let their hearts get hard. They'll get upset because they don't get their way. They'll get upset because things don't seem to be working out for them. And they'll start to, some of them, especially those of us who have been in the church for a period of time and wander off somewhere, we have this habit of taking the Bible and we'll just find one little piece of a verse and we'll twist it all around to make it look like it supports what we're doing. So we're in the right, and we're still getting the raw end of the deal. You guys wouldn't do that, but you probably met somebody who has done something like that at some point. The Bible supports exactly what I want, and we'll twist God's word to support us. And then we'll wonder why we don't get all the good things we deserve. And then what happens when we get to that place, when I get to that place? People lose their temper. People change churches. People cut off their relationships. And they find that the thing that isn't working still doesn't work in the new place that they go because they're still there. A pastor friend of mine told me once, he says, if you like chocolate chip cookies here, there's no reason to think you'll stop liking them if you move one town or two towns or the next state over, because you're still you and you still like them. If I'm the one in sin, if I'm the one hanging on to something, if I'm the one who's using the Father's resources wrong, I will still be the problem in the new place. It doesn't stop just because I go to another church or another town or get new friends or divorce my wife and start a new family. I'm still me. So those people end up spending their whole life angry, and they spend their whole life entitled, and they spend their whole life lonely and disappointed, because that's what happens when we take eternal things and try to apply them to something temporary. A young man found out he was starving, and he says, I remember who I am and I need to go home. The people that get confronted with that and they don't want to deal with it, the Bible calls those people foolish. When I get to a place that I realize I'm not doing well and perhaps I'm the problem, I say, no, 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 no. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. The Bible says that's foolishness. That's what we're talking about here. The son realized he had done foolish things and he'd behaved like a fool. Twice we see that word. Another place we see that word in the Bible is Proverbs 29:11. It says, fools are quick to express their anger. But wise people are patient and control themselves. This is the same word that Jesus uses in the parable for what the young man was doing with his life, being foolish. In fact, there's a lot of places in the scripture that use this same word for foolishness. They use the same language and they describe foolish people as people that are too quick to vent their feelings, whatever kind of feeling it is. Just to anyone who will listen, they want to vomit what they're feeling on you. People that are quick to start arguments. Well, I think you're wrong and here's why. People that are quick to make accusations. People that are always looking for an opportunity to express their opinion and never are interested in what someone else has to say. Foolish people tend to disrespect their leadership and they think they're smarter than everyone else and they're always looking for a chance to prove it. Foolish people end up repeating their mistakes over and over and over and always produce the same results, no matter what relationship they're in, no matter what church they go to, no matter what job they're in, because they're not learning anything. See, foolishness means that you're not teachable. It means you're so dumb that you can't learn. The son in this story finally realizes, I'm being foolish. I'm not allowing my mistakes to teach me anything. And then he remembers who he is. He comes to his senses. He realizes that he's done a foolish thing. In fact, he's done a lot of foolish things. Because the truth is, I don't know about you, but I very rarely just do one foolish thing. You don't have to laugh that loud. I very rarely do one foolish thing. I tend to have them pile up. Because I'll do one foolish thing and then I will have a knee-jerk reaction to try and fix the foolish thing I did, and I'll do another foolish thing. And all these things are well-intended, but I've got 3 or 4 of them piled up by the time I realize I got to take my hands off this and talk to somebody else. Look, are y'all having a powwow about me? I'm being honest. We all are like that. It's human nature. This son comes to his senses and realizes, I didn't just do one dumb thing. I've done a lot of dumb things. And I justified this dumb thing because of the other foolish things I did before that. So now I had to do this foolish thing. I know it seems like a silly thing to do, but if you had been where I was, you would probably, at some point we have to take our hands off of it and say, I got to get home to Dad. At some point we have to say, Lord, I need your help. And that's what this young man does. In fact, he does exactly what the scripture tells him to do. Proverbs 9:6 says, leave your foolish ways behind and live differently. Walk along a path that brings understanding. See, people who are truly pursuing God, and I think this is important because some of you, even as I'm talking, and even as she was saying, we start to realize, oh, that's me. I make foolish mistakes, and they start to pile up. If we're being honest, we see that. And then we'll start to feel bad about ourselves. But Jesus doesn't say that's how we're supposed to react. People that are truly pursuing God eventually realize they've made a mistake. And coming to your senses and realizing what you've done is part of the process of not being foolish anymore. Everybody who's pursuing God eventually realizes they've made a mistake. And God doesn't say that it's okay to sin, but he always says it's okay to come home and ask for my help. It's okay to come back to me no matter how foolish the thing you did was. God has embraced every sinner that ever came back to him, no matter what their reason for leaving was, and no matter what their reason was for coming back. See, I kind of left you hanging on that when I said the son came home because he was starving. The son was in a foolish place, and he may have remembered who he was. Oh, I'm my father's son, and I'm hungry, so I'm going home. He didn't realize he was going home to make things right with his father. And I think a lot of times as Christians, because we are learning here how Jesus says the lost should behave, it's also how we should behave when we meet the lost. So this is the way I should be responding to them. A lot of times we expect lost people to know exactly why they came and what they're doing here, and they don't. We've had a lot of lost people come into this church that don't know how to behave in church, that don't understand that what they're doing is wrong. They just know they want to be here and they like being around these people. They just know that they were hungry and we had a meal that night. They just know that we were friendly and helped them when something bad was going on in their life. A lot of people that say they're following the Lord expect the lost person to come back and say, oh, well, I'm glad you're having a meal tonight because really what I needed was to get saved. Will you pray with me? And I've never once had that happen in all the time that I've been ministering to people. And I don't think it very often does, unless it's a person who's wandered away from home, unless it's a person who's saved at one point and wandered off somewhere. Generally, people, when they're returning to the Lord, when they're coming back home to Dad, they don't even know why. Their motivations may be completely wrong. This young man was just hungry, and he came home to Dad to beg for scraps. If you're a parent, you realize how silly that is. I would never, if my kid came home starving to death, say, well, you can have whatever's in the garbage, and you can eat like that for a week just to get it through your thick skull. How dumb what you did was, and after that, then you can come talk to me. There's absolutely no way. And some of you are shaking your head even at the idea. That's not at all how we would treat our kids. But the young man has been foolish, and he's coming back for the wrong reason, and he's willing to settle for a whole lot less just to be able to get back in Dad's house. He even had this crazy idea in verse 19 that he says, I'm going to pay my own way back. I'm going to come eat garbage out of Dad's trash can, and I'm going to work on his farm like a regular laborer, and I'm going to pay my way and earn my way back into his good graces so he'll love me again. If you're a parent, you realize how silly that idea is. He was too lost to even understand that he couldn't earn back what he lost. He was just looking for a way to survive and said, Dad may not be kind to me, but at least he won't let me die. People don't always know. We don't always know why we're coming back to the Lord. There are times when I have gone back to the Lord. In this past year, I've been through a process and some things in my life where I didn't even realize what in me was broken and what was wrong. And I had to spend some time with Jesus and with some people that know him even better than I do to help point out, hey, you think you came for this, but here's what the big issue was. Let's work on that. The point is, the Father received the Son. Because isn't this really how all of us come back to God? We don't always understand why we're there. I don't always know why a song makes me cry. I don't always know why I want to be at the altar and pray. I don't always know why I feel like I need to get to God. I just sometimes know that's where I need to go. A lot of times we just come looking for an option. We come looking for an opportunity. Even when we know for sure that everything else we've tried didn't work, we'll just come back and say, maybe this will work this time. Sometimes we come back to God as a last resort because we say everything I've tried just doesn't work at all. The son comes back because he's hungry. We come back sometimes just because, Lord, I'm so sick and I need you to heal me and the doctors can't do it. I'm so hungry, I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids. I'm so lonely and at least the people at church are nice to me. I'm so sad and at least when they sing that song, I don't feel sad for those 3 minutes. Anything we've done while we're away from God is a waste of what he gave us in the first place, and we feel guilty and we feel bad about it, and that causes us to come back sometimes for the wrong reasons. And God knows that sometimes we come back for the wrong reason. And in the same way that your reason for leaving him doesn't matter, in the same way that how someone got lost is not important, the reason you came back doesn't matter either. I think that's one of the hardest things for us to get through our head, especially if we've been in church for any period of time, to realize it doesn't matter why I came back. God will work on my heart and my reasons for coming back. The Father in this story and God, he understands that you don't always come to him with the right motives, but why you came doesn't matter. He says, come, and he promises, he responds and receives everyone who will come. Everyone who will show up, he will receive them. You see this in verses 20 through 24. I want to read this to you again. The son left and went to his father, and while the son was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. And this translation says he felt sorry for him. We'll talk about that in a minute. He ran to him. He didn't stand and scowl at him and wait for him to drag himself up the road. He didn't hold the gate closed and make it hard for him to pull it open and get through. He didn't say, I'll be in the back 40, get there however you can, then maybe we can talk. No, he saw him coming and he ran to him and hugged him and kissed him. And the son said, Father, I've sinned against God and I've done wrong to you and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, hurry, Bring the best clothes and put them on him. Put a ring on his finger and good sandals on his feet. Bring our best calf and kill it so we can celebrate and have plenty to eat. My son was dead, but now he's alive again. He's lost, but now he's found." And they began to have a party. There's several phrases in here. One of them is, while he was still a long way off, the father saw him. Despite the fact that the son had rejected him, the father was still watching him from a distance. God has never given up looking after you. Not a single time did he quit. Despite how foolish living had changed the son, the father didn't stop looking after him, and the father still recognized him when he saw him. Because God is always watching for you no matter how far away you are. He's always watching over you no matter where you go. You may have told him you don't want him to intervene, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to be present. He's there waiting for the very moment that you will turn your head, turn your eyes, turn your heart, and say, "Dad, I need you." He's instantly there to run after you. There's not a change that you can make in your life that will keep God from recognizing you. You can't. You can try as hard as you want to wreck yourself, ruin yourself, get as far away from him as you can, be as mad at him as you want to. You can't change yourself so much that the Father doesn't recognize his son or his daughter. God will let you reject him. He will let you be a rebel. He will let you even experience the consequences of your decisions if that's the decision that you've made. I want what I want more than I want you. He will let all that happen because he loves you enough to let you make your own decisions, but he's still going to watch for a distance, and he's still eager for your return. Deuteronomy 31:6 says he will never leave you and never forsake you. You might leave him, but he's never leaving you. And when he sees you turn back to him, he is always eager for your return. This is true even when you're in the middle of the worst place you've ever been. When you are sinning on purpose and you're in the middle of enemy territory, surrounded by every demon and devil of hell, Jesus is still right there. It's true even if you marched yourself into the pit of darkness and you set up a tent and you swore you would stay there and you'd never go home to Dad. The minute that you realize I've done something foolish and you remember who you are, he's right there. Psalm 139, verse 8. It's the second time I've read this today. It says, "If I go to the heavens, if I rest in the depths, if I decide to sleep in hell, you're still there." The Father saw the Son from a distance. He recognized him, and he went straight to him to help. This translation says the Father felt sorry for him. It's one of the few times I don't really like how this translation says it, because at least in the South, we think, I feel sorry for somebody means, oh, bless his heart. And it's kind of a way of saying, oh, you're so stupid. Some translations, or one that I like better, says that the Father saw him and had compassion for him. One translation says he still cared for him. The most literal translation, if you go back and bring it into English, the word that gets used there for feeling sorry means to move by instinct and to use love to end suffering. The Father saw the Son coming from a distance, and he was moved by instinct to love him and end his suffering. The Father had every right to keep his distance because the Son had absolutely treated him terribly. But he was literally propelled by love and a desire for his Son not to suffer, and he ran towards him. That's what grace looks like. That's what forgiveness looks like. This is not just a picture of how the Lord should receive you. It's a picture of how every one of us should receive any lost person that comes to us looking for what God's given. Even if they don't know what they're looking for. I should be just as happy to feed a hungry person as this father was that his son came home. I should be just as happy for the opportunity to help someone who's struggling, even if it's the 47th time that they've come to my house at 10 o'clock at night looking for help. I should be like this father, just as eager to help them, because it's the way that God has treated me. This is what grace looks like. Even when we're wrong, God's deep love and deep compassion for us propels him toward us as fast as he can run, with a desire to end whatever suffering we're dealing with. God is motivated by compassion to relieve the suffering of anyone who will turn to him, and we should be the same. It's true no matter what their offense was, and it's true no matter how often they've committed it, and it's true no matter how they got to that place. In Matthew 18:22, Jesus talks about forgiving, and he says we should forgive 70 times 7, which if you do the math is, math people, 490. Does that mean that at 491 you're out of luck? No more forgiveness for you. Ding, next. No. 70 times 7 is a symbolic number in the culture of Jesus' day, and it just means an infinite number of times. It means boundlessness. It means grace and forgiveness that has no end. The Father sees the Son from a distance, and he has compassion, and he says, if it were the 500th time or the first time, I'm glad you've come home. I want to end your suffering. And it says the Father, out of that love, sees him, and it says he ran to him. This is important because the idea of running to him, culturally, this would have been disgraceful. As I age a little bit, I can relate to this idea that in Jesus' day, men over 40 didn't run for any reason. In fact, there's a verse in Proverbs that says, only the wicked run when no one is chasing them. Right. So men over 40, because by the time you reached 40, you were considered mature, you were considered established, and you were in a place where you're transitioning to the place where your sons and the people who work for you should be taking care of you and running the family business, and you should get to enjoy the rest of your life. Men over 40 were too dignified and too respected and too refined in their lives at that point to run. If you see an older man running, there's only a few things that it means. It's out of fear because someone is coming to kill them. It's out of desperation because they have no other option, or it's just because they have no class whatsoever. They have no composure. They can't hold themselves together. They might be a little cuckoo. But because of his compassion, the Father didn't care what it looked like. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't desperate. And it didn't matter to him what he looked like to other people. This is a picture of how God responds to people who approach him. He is eager and excited and doesn't care what you think about the fact that he would run toward that sinner. He's already told us in these other stories how valuable the sinners are and how important it is we go look for them. And he says, even when they're walking toward me, they can't get to me fast enough. I'm going to close the gap, and I'm going to get there faster than they can get to me. We have to treat people this way. See, a lot of times we sit down and we look at people who've done something wrong and we say, oh, well, it's the 4th or 5th time they've done this to you. I wouldn't forgive them. I wouldn't. I've heard this so many times. You look at somebody who's done something terrible, and this is a very Southern phrase, and part of why I laugh is because I can hear my grandmother saying it in my head. I wouldn't want to stand before God after I did that. I wouldn't want to have to be the one in front of Jesus after I'd done something like what he did. And we start to make these I wouldn't statements. I wouldn't forgive them. I wouldn't give them another chance. I wouldn't let them come back. I wouldn't ever want to. It's a good thing that we're not God, because God runs toward the sinner. If we refuse to do for others what God did for us, then we are still the prodigal son. Something about us is still lost if we wouldn't run toward the sinner and welcome them home. We need to come to our senses and remember who we are before we say, I would never, and I wouldn't if I was in that place. In the same way that Jesus gave no reason for the son's departure, we also see that the Father's only concern was that the son came home. That's all that mattered. Don't care what you did. Don't care where you've been. Come home. I'm glad you're here. Neither his reason for leaving nor what he had done while he was away mattered at all to the Father. We're either with the Father or we're not, and that's what matters. If you're not with the Father, get with him. And if you see someone who's not with the Father who wants to be, even if they seem to come for the wrong reasons, even if they have treated people badly, even if they don't have a great track record, I'm not saying let them run you over and treat you badly, but don't turn them away from the house or the heart of God simply because of what they've done, because God doesn't. And how dare you think you know better than the Lord who to let back in the house? Remember, we looked at these previous parables. And it says, all of heaven rejoices when one comes home. So must we. Who am I to say, not happy they're back, don't want anything to do with them? It says the Father ran to him and he threw his arms around his neck and kissed him. See, this comes back to an idea that we've come across several times recently. My friend from Brazil that was here recently, he made this statement. He says sometimes we try to clean up before we get to the showers. And that's one of the dumbest things somebody could try to do. The son didn't have a bath. He had rags for clothes. He'd been sleeping with smelly animals. He came home for the wrong reasons. He left with a bad attitude in the first place. And the father didn't hesitate to embrace him. No matter what he smelled like, no matter what he looked like, no matter what state his heart was in, the fact that he came home was all that mattered. We'll work on those other things later, but what matters most is you're back with me. All that matters is found in verse 24. He was dead, but he's alive again. He was lost, but now he's found. See, how we receive the lost has a tremendous impact on whether they will ever change or not. If we don't receive the lost the way Jesus receives them, there's no hope that the things about them that are wrong will ever be different. Because if we don't love them the way that they show up, why would they want to stay around and become different? There's a reason that a lot of people, it's an analogy that I've heard before. I wish I knew whose it was. I would give them credit. But we talk about people that they come to church and then they never come back. Or they've been to church for a while and they do something wrong and people find out about it and then they leave and they're embarrassed to come around. They won't take your phone calls. But that same person, if they go to the bar down the street and they've had a bad day, they get welcomed up to the bar and given a drink just like everybody else, just like every other time. Those people still love them, say, man, that's terrible that happened to you. How can I help you? What can I do for you? The world often does a better job of welcoming people in distress than we do. If we can't welcome them, if we can't make them feel like they belong, if we can't run to them and embrace them and close the gap and let them know we're so glad that you're here and celebrate the way that heaven does when they show up, if all we can do is say, oh, I'm glad you're home, but God, you stink. Get a shower. We'll talk when you're done. Okay, listen, you're more than welcome to stay here, but we got to have a conversation before I let you in the fence. The way you talked to me when you left is not acceptable. Well, those things need to get addressed. And God wants us to work on those things in our lives. But the father didn't deal with any of that stuff. He ran and closed the gap and embraced the dirty, smelly, stinky son with the bad attitude and the rotten heart and said, I'm glad you're here. I wouldn't want you to be anywhere else. Let's have a party because what you once were doesn't have to be anymore. We're going to fix that. That's how we change people. We minister to them the way the Lord found us, the way this father finds the son. How we receive the lost has a huge impact on whether they ever change. See, the son's heart changes because of how the father received him in this story. In verse 21, the son says, I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. In fact, if you back up to verse 19, the speech that the son gives, it indicates he's still prideful. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to come back and I'm going to work for dad and I'll eat scraps if I have to, but I'm not going to expect him to treat me right. I'm going to earn my way in. He's still full of pride. His attitude is still wrong. And he doesn't even realize he doesn't have what he needs to do what he says he's going to do. Make me a hired hand. He's still got foolish ideas. The father doesn't deal with any of that. He gives him a hug and says, I'm glad you're home. It's the father's reaction in verses 20 through 24 that changes things. Because the father receives him as a son before the son changes at all. The son is still dirty, still broken, still has a bad attitude. And the father says, no, you're my son. Come back into my house. The father celebrated and received the son first. And that's what gave the son the opportunity to change. What changed the son's heart was the way the father welcomed him. What changed your heart was the way that God welcomed you. Not that he treated you the way you deserved to be when you threw yourself on the altar or had that conversation with whoever it was that led you to the Lord or even had that moment of prayer in the car. Whatever happened that brought you into God's presence, he didn't tell you, hey, by the way, I appreciate you coming. Let's fix all this stuff that's out of wreck or that's a wreck in your life. No. I'm glad you're home, son. I'm glad you're home, daughter. We'll work on this stuff, but I'm glad you're here. We've got to welcome and receive lost people in the same way. No matter how they got lost, no matter where they've been, how we treat them when they come home is what will change their hearts. Because we're showing them the way the Father feels about them. The Father is always seeking and saving the lost. We can't become blind to who the lost are. If we do, we're just as prodigal as this young man. Because every single lost soul matters, and how we receive them is of the utmost importance to God. Remember the examples that Jesus gives us in these 3 parables. He tells us the importance of seeking the lost, going and finding the one lost sheep. He tells us the value of the lost, the woman who lost her coins, wherever they were and whatever it took to find them. She didn't care. She just wanted to find them because they had value no matter where they were. And then in this parable, we see how we receive the lost when they become found is absolutely important. If you know lost people, remember that this is how Jesus expects you to receive them. When they show up at your front door, when they show up in your place of work, when they show up in this building, we have to respond the way Jesus responds. We have to respond the way these parables tell us to. This person is valuable. This person is important. I'm glad they've come home. If you know people that are lost, this is how God expects us to receive them. If you're lost, know that this is the way Jesus wants you to come. Know that this is how Jesus will receive you, exactly the way that you're standing, exactly the way that you sit, in whatever case or circumstances you're in right now. The Lord looks at you tonight and he says, that person is valuable. That person is worth my time and attention. You are someone that I will receive with great excitement, says the Lord. Because the Lord is simply glad that you've come to be with him and you would come home. These 3 parables tell us how Jesus feels about the lost. These 3 parables show us exactly how we have to behave if we call ourselves disciples of the Most High God. Let me pray for you. Father, I thank you tonight for this lesson, and I thank you for this perspective. Lord, these 3 lessons together over these 3 weeks, I thank you for letting us see the lost the way that you do, how important they are, how valuable they are, and the way that we should welcome them when they show up. God, work on our hearts so that we will receive people in this way and see them in the way that you do. And if we're lost, Lord, give us a peace and a comfort with the fact that you are running towards us right now, seeing us coming. God, let us receive what you want to give when you say that you're glad we're home. Thank you for your word. Thank you for making it so clear and so simple. Remind us of it as often as we need to be reminded, and keep us safe until the next time you have us together. In your name, amen. Thank you, guys. It's good to see you tonight. I'll see you again soon.